myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good morning and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, on quite a monumental day for politics. And I'm joined by Malcolm MacDonald, SUPERMAC, who will be taking your questions over the next hour about the latest ins and outs and ongoings at St James's Park. But Malcolm, just, we don't do politics on this programme, but just a thing to consider here. The Prime Minister refused to resign. He blamed everyone but himself. He prioritised leisure over work. He gave his mates a job. He didn't admit to his mistakes. He left his workplace in a worse position than when he joined it. And he got friends and family to praise the job he has done. And I tell you what, that took me back to last summer when we were trying to get rid of this idiot, Steve Bruce. 2 peas in a pod, Malcolm. 2 peas in a pod.
Yes. The only difference is, of course, that Steve Bruce didn't go to Eton.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody liked to eat. Okay, we're going to start. I'll start with the ticket situation, Mal. And we had a brief chat off air because I know you don't do a great deal of social media, but you do keep your ear to the ground. You speak to Gibbo every week and do the show, and but you just to inform you about the ticket situation and this little matter that exploded, I guess, on social media with regards to £20 tickets for friendlies. Guess the question I'm going to ask you is £20 too much for a friendly? And I'll draw a comparison here, which I didn't mention here. Chelsea's friendly at home, they're charging £50. Liverpool's friendly at home, they're charging £37. Newcastle are charging £20. Now, the furore started when a guy, I'm not going to embarrass him again, but he put it on his own personal Twitter profile that £20 was too much, and he wanted a boycott of the games in response to the fact that they've now gone from £10 to £20 and from a £5 to a tenner for kids. What's your take on it, Mal?
Well, Newcastle are indeed much, much cheaper than other clubs. I know things are difficult, but nevertheless, prices are going up everywhere on everything. But Newcastle at least are sort of holding their prices down to what's reasonable. They can't set a price list that suits everybody's pocket. They've got to put a line in it somewhere, and what everybody must remember is that to run a football club is very, very expensive, and also the fact of the matter is that for the last 2 months at least, there has been no income coming into the club whatsoever. So this is always a difficult time for clubs, and I think Newcastle are trying to do the very best they can in terms of pricing. And as you mentioned right at the start, Liverpool are 75% higher. Chelsea are almost double. So I think Newcastle are making an effort. If people can't afford it, and back in the 1970s, we had this exact problem because the government had reduced the whole working situation to 3-day weeks in the main, and it was a time of real hardship for people, and we would go out at St James's Park playing in front of sometimes 15, 20,000, when normally we would have had 40-odd thousand in the ground filling it. But times were hard then, and The club seems to have bent over as much as it can on this, and I think we've got to remember what the other clubs are charging, and and of course there are problems over in Liverpool, problems in Manchester. The financial problems for people are all around, not just up here.
Yeah, Gary says it's the fact that he said boycott that's the issue, and Kenny says it's a fair price. Go back to the days prior to Ashley, we paid £20 then, and that was 15 years ago. And I think somebody points out as well. Paul Hurd says, I think the tickets are reasonable if you compare with the top six, and the area isn't the richest. I still can't afford to go to matches, but they have to be fair. It's not that bad. Michael West says the brand and entertainment is 100% better. Surely £20 as opposed to £10 is a no-brainer. And costs are going up for the football club as well. And if we anticipate that there's going to be probably more than 20,000 fans there, that there has been in previous friendlies, and they're going to have to open up the wider parts of the ground, it could be 52,000 there for one of those games, if not both, because the demand will be greater. Then costs are going to rise. And of course, energy prices are going up. You're going to need to have more staff. So the increase in price shouldn't really be too much of a surprise. But I think, as Mitch pointed out last night on the show as well, you were paying for Ashley's Newcastle United then. We're now paying for an improvement. We've got better players.
Huge
We're hoping for a better season.
Yes, and also, I think if what Newcastle are charging is compared to live theatre, and football is pretty much that on a sporting basis, it's live theatre, and so I think they are very competitive in their pricing. Of course, it's not going to suit everybody, but I wish it would, but that can't be the case. The costs of running a football club are huge. What people would get more upset about is if Newcastle were to say, look, we're going bust because we're not getting the income.
Yeah, exactly. Kenny says lots of opinions on this. If the price was too high, why were there long queues just to get a ticket? Sooty says, I would pay £20 if it was just me. I think it's reasonable. However, if I wanted to take the family to a friendly, it would cost £90 plus fuel from Cambridge and back. Add to that when you eat out, which again is another good point. People wanting 80,000 stadiums will be crying for kids for a quid deal. I just wish I could get to St James's Park again. £20 seems a reasonable price to me, says Don. So lots of opinions about this. And I mean, somebody pointed out Rob Lee's testimonial. I mean, that was a long time ago. That was £20 to get in. I mean, things haven't massively changed. It's the Ashley era, I think, which has probably changed people's philosophy on this. If you've got a point on that, though, send it in. I will come to it, but we'll move on from that. Go on, Malcolm, if you've got one more point to make.
I had my family up, and my youngest daughter and her family, and we went to Alnwick Castle. And Alnwick Castle is £20 an adult, £15 for concessions, which I am, without bragging about my age. And then it was £10 for kids, and I thought that was really reasonable for these days. So, and that's a very similar price structure to what Newcastle are charging. So I don't think there's room for huge complaints.
Schofield says, I'm saving to fly to Newcastle from Australia to see one game at St James's Park. £20 for locals seems reasonable compared to that. Good point, Skullfist, good point. Keep your comments coming in on that. We're going to talk football. And if you've got any questions, get them in. No Gibbo this week. He's on vacation. So if you've got any questions for Malcolm, now is the week to do it. Gayle, Hendrick and Clark have all been sent to train with the under-23s as they look for a move away from Newcastle, and Matty Longstaff, Mal. So, I mean, I think it's the one thing that we've talked about on this show over the last few weeks, ins, but there does need to be a few outs. And I think what we've got to remember, Kieran Clark and Matty Longstaff have both still got 12 months left on the deal. Dwight Gayle and Jeff Hendrick are both under contract until 2024. So it's not going to be easy to get these players out if there's no interest, although we're led to believe from press reports over the last 24 hours that Dwight Gayle has been offered to Middlesbrough and that Watford are also keen. And Dwight Gayle in the Championship does bring goals. But what do you make of that quartet, Malcolm? Gayle, Hendrick, Longstaff and Clark?
I think Hendrick and Clark, their day is spent as far as the Premiership's concerned. Dwight Gayle, I'm not surprised about at all. When you think that he was given a new contract, and I think that surprised everybody. And that was summer of last year, wasn't it? And he was given a new 3-year contract. And I think we all said, why? He's not being played. And since he signed that new contract, he's still not been playing. He comes on for a 5-minute here and a 5-minute there. And so I have found how they've dealt with the fella quite strange. All in all, little short of a complete waste of money. With Matty Longstaff now, you see, we've just been discussing people in their late 20s into their 30s. So age is against them. With Matty Longstaff, that's an entirely different concern. He's a young man who I think has got a lot of potential, and I'm a little surprised because I felt that when he was actually playing in the first team, I thought he was getting better and better and better at quite a quick rate. And he looked that he had to have the potential to be a goal-scoring midfield player. And he would get stuck in. And I liked what he was doing. But obviously fell foul with Steve Bruce, and I don't think the people at the club now have had that much of a chance to really see a fit Matty Longstaff in full flow. But perhaps they may well be saying, well, we're actually reaching a lot higher than what he can offer. So I think it's one of those things, and I've always believed, and it's one of those things with football that you're either wanted or not wanted. Don't go crying about not being wanted. Go and find somewhere that wants you, that values you, that will appreciate you, and that's what Matty Longstaff has got to do. It's a great new challenge for his life and his career. And I wish him well. I know the family, and of course they're North Shields guys, and I think Matty is at an age now where he can go and grab a position, particularly in the Championship. Move to Middlesbrough, yeah, I'd take that if I were Matty Longstaff. I would certainly take that, and I think that he would really excel in the Championship with every likelihood that he would then bounce back on his next move into the Premiership.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's I think it's got to be done though. These players just haven't got a place at Newcastle, for the forthcoming season, and we've got to try and get rid of them. And the likes of Dwight Gayle, I'll never, for the life of me, understand why he was offered that huge new contract. And
that was absolutely balmy, because he'd been sat on the bench for a whole year. His contract runs out. He was completely ignored, and then all of a sudden they give him a new 3-year contract. Well, for heaven's sake, what was the point of that? It's utter madness. Give him a 1-year extension to his contract, maybe, if you feel that he's needed. but he hadn't been needed at all through the season. And I shall always find myself scratching my head over this guy and how Newcastle have treated him. His last start was against West Bromwich Albion in the season that West Brom got relegated. And Murphy, he swung from the right wing. He swung this fabulous near post ball in, putting a lot of curl on it. And Dwight Gayle got up at the near post and he belted it off his forehead right into the top corner. It was a superb cross, superb header, superb goal all round. And then Dwight Gayle disappeared. He scored a goal like that and he just disappeared. And now and again, you could see him peeking over the seat in front from the bench. And I just found it madness. And then at the end of that season, they give him a new contract. For the life of me, I can't see any sense to it at all. And the best thing for him, because at the age that he is, he doesn't want to be sitting on a bench, getting blisters on his backside, for heaven's sake. He needs to be playing. He needs to go out in the last 2 or 3 years of his career, scoring goals out in the field. And sitting on the bench, dear me, that's a sad way to finish a career, isn't it? So
it is.
Yeah, so go on, Dwight. Go and get a move to a championship club, and his record in the championship is second to none. It's a great goal scoring record. And if I were a manager in the championship, I would be on at Newcastle to let him go.
Yeah, Don Hope, he goes to the Smuggies. He says, might get them promoted. I'd love to see all the North East teams in the top flight as long as we are the top dogs. Don has exactly the same attitude that I have. Kenny says, Gayle allegedly caught Ashley with a tea lady and the contract just materialised. You do wonder sometimes in football, Kenny, you do sometimes wonder in football, but I did stick an allegedly in there. Kenny also says they have moved some to train with the under-23s, but others could still go if we bring in 1 or 2 more players. I think the striker must be the top of the list. And Skullface says Matty Longstaff looked good in the first team when he was given a chance. Also talk of him being one of the hardest workers in training. And Rich, again, following on the striker side of things, says we need a proven striker next in case Wilson goes down again through injury. Can't rely on Wood again. Yeah, Wood hasn't been seen. I know he's had a little bit of time off because of his international commitments. Manquillo's another one who's been conspicuous by his absence at the training ground. Might have just been given a little bit extra time off. We don't know that. But yeah, is it a disaster if the season starts without the striker and Wilson is still fit and Wood is in backup, Malcolm? If we're taking a little bit longer just to get the right person in for the right price? Because I think the way Newcastle have played this is like a game of cards. They have it, and Ashworth has also come in. We have to remember the transition from, Mirdad Amanda and Jamie Rubin dealing with football affairs has now changed. Dan Ashworth's come in. He's got his blueprint. He knows what he wants to do. He has to learn how to work with Steve Nixon and all the other people who are involved in the transfer side of things, and of course Eddie Howe. And is it? It's not. I don't think it's panic stations. Personally, I think that if they're going to get the right person, they might have to wait. It could go to deadline day. So I personally think, as long as he's not injured, Callum Wilson starting the season with a fully fit Callum Wilson, and in the kind of form that we had in the last couple of games from him, I'm not particularly worried as long as we do get that striker in before the window closes. Yeah,
there's always the fear, isn't there, that we have a centre half who's prone to injury. Centre forward is prone to injury. He is an excellent goal scorer and worked hard up there. But with his injury record, you need to have somebody on standby all the while. And Wood isn't good enough for that. I think he's proved that he hasn't got the quality or the ability to make it at Premiership level, and that like Dwight Gayle, that the Championship might be his level, and he'd excel there. But I just felt with Wood that, you know, when you look at goal scorers, they know where the goal is, wherever they are on the field. They don't have to look over their shoulder at all. They know where it is. And with Wood, I've had the impression that he was searching for the goal. He couldn't work out just what his position was to the goal itself, and so he was always having to look at it. And sometimes I think he turned away because he really didn't want to go in that direction. He didn't want to be put on that spot, and so I think that we've just talked about 4 players who are going. If I had the opportunity, I would say, right, I want to bring somebody in, but I'm going to and then I will let Wood go. And but who to bring in? Is it somebody who has to wait until Callum Wilson is injured, or do we bring somebody in who can stand up and be an absolute challenge to Wilson? It'll be interesting to see, but certainly I think we have to get somebody in to challenge Wilson. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Richard Morris says, would Malcolm sell Jonjo Shelvey?
Yes. Yeah. I think what all that's happened at Newcastle, it's moving on into a quite different category of football that doesn't suit a bit of a slow coach like Jonjo Shelvey. He will always look to slow the game down. Newcastle want to quicken the game up all the while. The likes of Bruno and what have you. Shelvey, he wants to slow it down and ping 40 and 60-yard balls. That isn't the way that Newcastle should be playing. And so I think that for the good of the club, for the good of Jonjo Shelvey, if I were him, I would be saying to the manager, I think it's time for me to move on.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I think we just need to, just make sure we've got the players in. This is another question from Kenny. He says, I was talking to a Leeds fan yesterday and he said Chris Wood was brilliant and would love him back in their team. Is it the formation that we play?
No, it's not the formation at all. If somebody hasn't got the awareness of that is required for goal scoring, then they're not a regular goal scorer. And Wood has not got that awareness. I've seen him sort of looking around too much on the field, and it's not teammates he's looking for. He's actually looking at just where the goal is. He should know. I thought he was far too stationary. All too often he would get into the box and stop, and he would just stand still. If the ball didn't come in, he should be getting out to come back in again, and he doesn't do that. But also, I think it was it Brighton that he came in at the far post and smacked the ball in the net. Great, he came in at a great pace on the far post. And I thought, right, learn from that. That's what you have to keep doing. And he's not done it since. And so he hasn't realised that's how to score a goal. Be on the move. One of the greatest goal scorers that this country's ever known was Jimmy Greaves. And when I was a kid, My sportsmaster at school said, right, I want you to go to Tottenham Hotspur tomorrow night and go and watch Jimmy Greaves. Don't watch anything else. Don't watch the game. Just watch Jimmy Greaves and what he does over 90 minutes. I was 14 and it was fascinating because when defenders went on their heels in slowing down, Jimmy Greaves went, he was on a sprint. When the defenders were all on the move, he'd stand still and he'd watch and he'd wait, ready to pounce. And it taught me a great lesson. You have to know when to go, when to hold back. And Chris Wood hasn't got a clue on that. Hasn't got a clue of when to go. He did it that once and he didn't realise what he'd actually done. It was a terrific goal. The way he came in on the far post, knocked it into the net. Terrific. He had scored on the move. And what do we see following that goal? We see a stationary Wood. And he didn't learn from the best goal he scored for this club. The best goal. He didn't learn anything from it. And I haven't seen him make that identical run ever again. And that tells me he doesn't understand what goal scoring is actually about.
Skullfist says Wood's game revolves around direct play. That's why he did so well at Burnley. I just don't think he fits the system Howe wants to play. BJT says, where was Joe Linton a year ago with Steve Bruce? I remember the fans wanted him out. Now look at him under the coaching of Eddie Howe. Wood and Gayle up top is prolific, says Jason Scott. And Tony says Wood scored plenty of goals at Burnley. On Shelvey, Chris Collins says Shelvey apparently asked for assurances on game time, and understandable given his age, so that in my mind that makes him an easy one to let go. Yeah, I would agree. Not many people could be given guarantees. And Skullfist also says Wood missed some sitters, to be fair, could easily have had at least 2 or 3 more goals.
Yeah, he could. But with Shelvey, he wants a guarantee of game time. Sorry, but no. When a player asks for that tells me that he hasn't got the confidence in his own ability, and that he's wanting a guarantee that he'll be in the side even if he's playing badly.
Yeah, and you can't do that. You can't do that.
You can't 100%. Do it. No.
Andrew says
very suspicious.
Andrew says, I'm sure Wood's a great lad, but I don't rate him at all. We need to be ensuring that we don't need him in the transfer window. Maggot says, Wood is absolutely garbage. We've got no strikers. If injury-prone Wilson is out, none at all. And Sutty suggests bringing in Diaby, and then you have ASM on the other wing. He agrees with me. He says, I think we should hold out if it means bringing in the right striker. Scott says, morning, lads. Obviously, we need another centre-forward, but who would you like to sign? Would you want a top striker to replace Wilson or one to be back up to Wilson? I mean, for me, Wilson, a fully fit Wilson, is the man you go with. And I think Eddie Howe's of the same mindset. I think that's why there isn't an urgency to go and spend money or stupid money on somebody that either doesn't 100% want to be here or somebody who's got an agent that's time wasting. So I genuinely feel, Wilson needs pushing. But I think, Wilson needs a full pre-season of training, which he didn't get last season, which of course can make him susceptible to injury. You know, I think that can be part of it. Let's see how Wilson does. But like me and Malcolm and Bo said, we need another one in. Whether that's somebody to play with him, whether it's somebody to be on his shoulder, like we've now got with the goalkeeping situation. We just need pressure, because otherwise it becomes too easy for Wilson. He sits back and goes, well, nobody's going to come in if I'm having a bad day. Yeah, 100%. I hope we go all out to get Diaby. He's a bit special. We will score as many as a lot of strikers, well worth 60 million. BJT says Wood played well up front with Barnes at Burnley, but Newcastle are not playing 2 up front. And Skullfist says Emmanuel Dennis from Watford was good in a poor Watford side. Going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Big thank you, as always, to Spider Miner, worldwide coverage from the lads. The only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors 01913897245. And a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.gohd.com. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who make our website, nufcmatters.com. And thanks to Cleekai. Meet the new game over screen, drop into a Clearrun device near you, available on Apple Store, Google Play, and clearrun.game. Thanks also to Mr. Vickies. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. 01768210102 is their telephone number. And thanks to Media Arts for all the video help as well. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it and click share to the social media. Drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans or to ask Malcolm a question. We're also available as a podcast, which usually goes up 24 hours after the show on iTunes, Spotify, and all good podcast providers. If you want to become a member, click join underneath the YouTube video today. We also support the food bank, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. The matchday bucket is up and running 365 days of the year, and you can make a virtual donation. If you want to enter the Shearer Ball raffle, go to nufcmatters.com and you could be a proud owner of a signed Alan Shearer ball. Don't forget as well, we do give away car stickers. For those of you who are subscribing for free, just email john@nufcmatters.com. And if you want to become a member of the cult, then you just need to go to nufcmatters.com and click membership, or put your smartphone over the QR code and you can get taken straight there. What do you get if you join that particular method? Then you get a cup, a pen, a scarf, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. And we've also been supporting Peter Beardsley Soccer School on the show. And if you want to sponsor a place for an underprivileged child in the Northeast, then you can do. Just go to his website, peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com, and you can find out all the details on there. Okay, back to your questions, and I've got a couple coming in. And which one should we go with? This one from Rich. What do you think the expectations of the owners would be for next season, Malcolm? With the investment already, will they expect Europa League? What if Howe has a bad start? Good question.
Well, yes, it is a good question, I suppose. I would think that the owners would be dissatisfied if Newcastle were to finish any lower than 8th, 7th or 8th. If they can actually make it into the top 6, all well and good. But I think that's just a little premature at the moment. For me, the Premier League, you can pretty much split it into 3. You have that. The top 6 with one or two others battling to sort of look to challenge the top 6. And then you've got a middle section who aren't going to go winning anything, but they're not going to get relegated. And then you've got that bottom third that's where the relegation battle is going to take place, or between those. Newcastle United, incredibly last season, they suddenly jumped up to 11th place. For the improvements that have taken place so far, and there's not been anything major yet. I think that Newcastle, if they can finish 8th, I would be more than happy with further improvement that can then look to attack into the top 6.
Yeah, I would agree. Little steps, baby steps.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're looking for. And that's the same on and off the pitch. A
sure.
lot of people are asking about Anthony Gordon. Paul Hurd says, "What's your thoughts on the Anthony Gordon rumours?" And an interesting flip on that is from a couple of people in the chat who've said, he's one of them. Would you use Elliot Anderson on the sub bench rather than spending millions on a young prospect when we already have one? The money could be used on getting a striker or a right winger. So, yeah, Anthony Gordon from Liverpool. Again, it's paper speculation at this moment in time. But, he's an up-and-coming talent at Everton. Newcastle supposedly in the race to sign him. But a few of our fans saying, well, he plays the same position as Elliot Anderson. Is it not worth giving him a chance? What's your thoughts on that, Mal?
Yeah, I agree very much. I think that all too often Newcastle United over the past 15 years or so have not given fair and reasonable chance to the up and coming youngsters that come through the system, and there are players who have gone on to do really well in the Premiership. For heaven's sake, and all too often, players have been loaned out season at a time, and have never really been given a chance. And we've seen goalkeepers going to other Premiership clubs and really doing well. When sometimes Newcastle have been struggling a bit for a goalkeeper, and there was one on the books and let go. So I personally, when I was a manager, I wanted to give the kids a chance. You take a bit of a risk, and there are a lot of people in football who will say you win nothing with kids, but they need to be given a chance at some point. And I would, rather than touch a youngster from Liverpool, I would look to give this lad that's already at Newcastle, give him a chance. What is a chance? Personally, I would say I'm going to give you 6 games in the first team. Really go and do the business, and then we can have another look at it. And if they do really well, you stick with them, and always stick with somebody who is doing well. And this is why I got a bit upset with regards to the Longstaff brothers, because I felt they were messed around prior to Eddie Howe coming. This is, of course, that they could be in, they could be out, and I wasn't impressed in any way with the way that Jonjo Shelvey was behaving, acting, and carrying on the field. All too often, when he had a young midfield player who was wanting to get on, wanting to improve, keen to do it, he would just turn his back on them and play the other way. Time and again, I've seen him do that. Time and again, just ignore that midfield player that's playing with him. And it's a kid who needs to be brought on. And I just felt that Jonjo Shelvey has got no generosity for young players. And I like experienced players to have that generosity and bring the kids on. And personally, I would be looking to let Jonjo Shelvey go during this window.
Yeah, as I say, it's work in progress, this team, so it will be interesting to see what happens. Sutty says, I hope the club make another documentary following the We Are the Geordies. Since that came out, we've had the takeover. Yeah, I think it will be good. I know Zara, who's a good friend of the show, is definitely looking at doing that. She'd love to do it. And Malcolm, of course, took part in that. I was involved as well. Gordon's been at the Richarlison School of Diving. Do we need them in our team? I would say no. Adam Armstrong, Ivan Toney, Kevin and Babu, 3 players, which of course Malcolm is mentioning, that we have let these kind of players go and not really giving them an opportunity. Yeah. So maybe Elliot Anderson could be the man. Everton won't sell Gordon. If they do, they want stupid money for him. Yeah, we've heard that, Zayad. I think that's the case. Gordon, the Scottish Richarlison, it's a no from me. Who would be Malcolm's number 1 goalkeeper, says Richard? Dubravka or Pope going into the new season?
Pope
no hesitation there, Malcolm.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you for why. If you remember the performance of Dubravka playing for his country, he literally chucked 5 goals in. And from that game, he's never been quite the same. He's never been the truly confident keeper that he was before that game. And I think that Pope, he will come in full of confidence in himself. And he's a boss of his box, which is what we need. Dubravka, he used to boss the box reasonably well, but since that nightmare of an international game, he's gone into a shell, and I find myself watching him, and I flinch a little when I see him going down to make a save, and I just don't seem to have the confidence in him, and I like Pope. He is an excellent goalkeeper, and so. Yeah, I would go with Pope. Dubravka won't be happy on that, and if I were Dubravka, as soon as they signed Pope, I would have gone to Eddie Howe and say, right, I want to know who you're going to play in the first game, and if he's told Pope, then say, right, I want to move on, because once you get into your latter 20s, you don't want to be sitting on the bench. You want to be playing, and this is why I really didn't understand Dwight Gayle signing that contract a year ago, 3-year contract. He just spent a whole season sitting on the bench, coming on for 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. As you get into your late 20s and into your 30s, you want to be playing all of the time.
Yeah, no, you do. You definitely do. Elliot Anderson is in the same boat as Gordon this time last year. Now talking big money for him. That's what you get when you're given the opportunity. Tom says, Malcolm, would you take Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton? I mean, that could be one of those that goes to the wire, I guess. And Everton are a selling club at the moment.
They are, yes. I'm not totally convinced about Calvert-Lewin, I have to say. I'm not convinced, and what Everton have been through this last season, it's made me question the ability of a number of players there, and I don't think Calvert-Lewin came out shining exactly. So,
Calvert-Lewin's too busy shopping for handbags, says Maggot Drowner.
Well, there we are.
Harper loved sitting on the bench, says Kenny. You do get some players who enjoy it. Steve Harper did enjoy sitting on the bench.
I don't think he did. I bet you now, if you have a conversation with Steve Harper and say, Steve, did you really enjoy sitting year after year on the bench while Shay Given was actually playing week in, week out? Would you rather have not gone somewhere and played on a regular basis? I think he'd say now, I wish I'd gone and played regularly.
It's a roll of the dice in that position, isn't it? Because, you're banking, unfortunately, on someone else's demise. You're hoping that there's an opportunity. Either someone has a bad run of form in goal, or unfortunately they find themselves sidelined with an injury, and then you have to take your chance.
Right, but at the same time, Steve, what you've got to remember is that they increased the number of subs from one, and steadily they've gone up, and it's now what, 7? Mm-hmm. So there are 7 players who aren't going to play a game unless there's injury or somebody's having a nightmare. But in the main, the subs don't get onto the field; they don't play, and I really couldn't tolerate that. I really couldn't tolerate it. I wanted to play every single game, and I'd kick up stink if I wasn't.
Yeah, Scott says Dubravka hasn't really done anything wrong for us. I'd definitely start off with Dubravka in goal first game. Any mistakes or we get a heavy defeat, then bring in Pope. That would be good management. I think it'll be down to the friendlies. I think there's enough high quality friendlies for him to make that decision. And Eddie Howe's already shown that he's not afraid to make big decisions. BJT says actually, rather than buy players, he would give a new contract to existing players like Gayle, who was on less terms but still on 40k a week. I'm not sure if that's true, but I get your point. Kenny says he's already answered that one. He hated it, but he said he was always second to the great Shea Given, which is fair enough. The one thing, the thing with Harper is he was there for the love of the club, and of course he's still part of the team. Skullfist says here in Sterling is going to Chelsea. That's a lot of right-footed wingers. Should we go in with a cheeky bid for Hudson Odoi? I can tell by your face, Malcolm, that's not one you'd be fancying either.
No, it isn't. I think there's I keep seeing all the same names cropping up all the while, and I think that there's a lot of players who they're on the periphery of teams, and they sort of fill the newspapers up with all the clubs that might be interested in them. And what we've got to remember is that at this time of the year, there's no matches, but the football journalists, they still have several column inches every day to fill. And so I take with a great pinch of salt all of this this transfer talk. Huge amount of salt right now, because you don't get that once the season starts. You maybe get a little bit here and there, but that's usually when the factual matter starts to come out. At the moment, journalists are filling column inches.
Yeah, I would agree. Question from Tom. He says, what kind of striker would you look to bring in, Malcolm, if it was you in charge?
One who scores goals. It might sound obvious, but that is, you see, you've got a striker in Wood. You've got a goal scorer in the other fella. What do you want? Do you want somebody who will score you goals like Wilson, or somebody who plays as a striker who is it's like kicking a ball against a brick wall. It'll come back to you. Personally, I want the fella up there. I want him scoring goals. That's all my demand of him would be. And so, personally, I would always look to bring in a goal scorer, not a striker.
Yeah, I would agree, Mal. We just desperately need somebody to come in. I think it would give the club a lift. But again, I just genuinely feel Newcastle are looking to get the right deals, at the right time, and and it's great. It's good to see a bit of leadership, and it's good to see that we've got a game plan, Malcolm. We're not going in, we're not going in blind, and we're not going in, looking to get our pants pulled down, for want of a better expression.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I still I still would love to see Lewandowski come in.
You've gone on about him for weeks now.
But he is a remarkable goal scorer. Absolutely remarkable. And there are 2 very good years in him. And that will get Newcastle through to a time when they probably will be wanting to bring in an absolute top man. Replan, he's going to be good for a couple of seasons. Lewandowski will be good for a couple of seasons, and then it's you replan for what follows them. And we've been witness to Newcastle United for all too often, where they have really struggled for goals. And so we've been witnessing a huge amount of pressure being put on defenders. Defenders then make mistakes. Goalkeepers are under pressure all the time. There is nothing worse for a defence and a goalkeeper to know that nothing is happening up front. And so they're not going to score a goal up front. There's no pressure being taken off the back line. The back line are always under that pressure. We daren't concede. And so in the end, they become nervous. They become scared even of what the opposition might accomplish and nick a goal. Because when that goal goes in, well, there's nobody up front to get us out of this mess. And so I've seen it happen all too often over the last 15 years. And what I always looked on was, guys, you do what you can back there. I will try and relieve you of the pressures of it as much as I can. And the only way to do that is to stick the ball in the net. Better to play 1-0 up than 0-0, and certainly 1-0 down. And the difference between 1-0 and 2-0 is huge. Where it's at 1-0, it's all nervy and tight. You get a 2-goal advantage. And that's a hell of a breathing space. That really is. And then you can relax and you can start to play and knock it around with the tension gone. The pressure is all on the opposition because not even 1 goal is enough. And so Wilson thinks like that. I can see it in him. He thinks like that. He is looking to stick it in the net, take the pressure off the back 4 and the goalkeeper. And Wood, it's never even crossed his mind. Not ever has it crossed his mind. And that's the difference. Wood is one of those that he'll chest it down and maintain possession and think he's done a really good job. To a degree, maybe, but you have to add to that and get into the box, stick it in the net, and relieve the pressure off the rest of the players.
Sully says, I think the owners have been excellent in their recruitment so far and not spending over the odds for a player. Look at Spurs, they've spent millions on Richarlison and he won't start over Kane. Yeah, it was a strange signing that. Just finishing off, Mal, talking about another youngster coming into the club, which for me is just a great sign of things to come. And we were complaining about the likes of Bobby Clark being allowed to leave, but Newcastle's transfer window hasn't just been about the first team; it's also been about the capturing of youth. And this young lad, Charlie MacArthur from Kilmarnock,
isn't it? Yeah,
made his debut in the Scottish Championship for Kilmarnock against Wraith Rovers when he was 16. He was brought into the first team squad up at Rugby Park by former Newcastle goalkeeper Tommy Wright, who was manager up there at the time. And he follows on the back of the 18-year-old coming in from Spurs, who I've mentioned on the show this week, Jordan Hackett, a Hammersmith-born fullback. who was released by Spurs, who spoke highly of Eddie Howe on signing his contract and saying that he'd had a great week on Tyneside and that he'd been made to feel very, very welcome. But the thing that really persuaded him to go against his mum's wishes for him moving so far north was Eddie Howe, and the fact that his chat with Eddie Howe led to him to believe that as long as he works hard and can realise his potential, he's going to have a chance of potentially breaking into the first team. And that's just we started talking about Steve Bruce at the start of the show jokingly. We're finishing off really in the same vein of how different things are 12 months further forward. And we've now got youngsters wanting to come to the club and play for the manager.
Yes, absolutely. Where Newcastle United for 15 years has been targetless, now there are targets. Now people are focusing on where the next step up is, and we know that things are happening all of the while for the good of the club, where it was all so stagnant under Mike Ashley. So it's an exciting time, but what the club are doing is that they're looking at that next level to come up and take over. Who knows? It may well be that there is, talking of Wilson up front. He's got a couple of really good seasons in him, and perhaps behind the scenes, playing in the under-23s or whatever, that we have somebody who can step up now. Because there have been young players in the past and they're just shunted out on loan. Oh yeah, we'll get rid of them, and they're sort of fed elsewhere to learn the game from somebody else. Newcastle United are now looking to keep the youngsters here and teach them how they need to play, and that's down to Eddie Howe. Well done to him. It's about time it happened, and it is happening and happening well. And so I'm all for getting really good kids in and working hard with them, because if they can be the next guys just to step up and take over from what's out on the pitch right now, great. It's looking to progress 2 years down the line, and under Ashley that went by the by.
Last question to Tom. He just says, question from Malcolm: will the Premier League's new footballs make any effect on them, and why do they bring a new football out every season? Footballs, how important are they, Mal?
It's all a financial thing, isn't it? It used to be that a club decided what ball they wanted to play with at home. At Newcastle, we played with a mitre ball, which I really liked. I liked it above all other balls. Man City, they played with Adidas ball. Others played with a Nike ball, and so it went on. So you go to away games, and you will play with a quite different ball that behaved differently to your own when you're playing at home. And so you had to get used to a variety of ball performance. Whereas what they've done now is they've just simplified it and said, right, everybody plays with the same ball. Doesn't mean to say the balls are good. I've watched a lack of shooting from so many players, and I don't think that they're confident with the ball that they play with. There's a lot of players who aren't, and therefore they don't shoot when the opportunity's there. They look to pass, so I don't think that there's a lot of that there is a great many players satisfied with what they're actually playing with. Have you ever have you held the ball that they played with last season?
No.
Well, yeah, it was very ridged, you know, and I used to when I got hold of it, I used to think, "Oh, get up and give it a good hit. You finish with stripes across your forehead." Yeah, I personally didn't like it very much, and I think that this new ball for the new season is somewhat similar. It's ridged. Well, we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah,
but also, what I would say is that when we used to play back in the 70s with all the different balls, you could find that you could put all sorts of movement onto one ball, and then the next game you'd be playing with a different ball. You could put a different type of movement in the air. There were those that would seriously curl, and others that would dip, and so you had to quickly in a game just get used to what that ball was going to do. These days, it's more limited because these balls that everybody has to play with are very limited as to what they're going to do. I don't think that they curl greatly, and nor do they move in the air up and down like you could cause them to do. Personally, I would rather play with a mitre ball from the 70s than the one today.
Well, there you go. There you have a good question. That finally, we're started on politics. We'll finish on politics, and it looks like the new man has turned up outside 10 Downing Street to take over from Boris Johnson. It's Sam Allardyce, I think. On that note, Mal, I will see you next week, mate. Have a good week.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.